All right.
Okay.
We are on live, but if you want to
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 action, we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
2.
Yes, Ryan, I do love you. Yes.
All right, we're definitely keeping that one.
So,
All
why
right.
don't we just jump into it, right?
All right.
Exciting new week.
Yes.
Didn't die again. No car accidents.
All right. Welcome to the Right Show. We're continuing to try to improve on our operation here. Our 2-man, and now look at us with our fancy iPads and
2-man.
computers. We're basically
Yes.
professional podcasters now.
We are professionals. We've been professionals.
Well,
Number one podcast in the world. Our show. I don't know. I think podcast is like really constricting. I don't really like that term, but we can roll with it for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, my name is Brian.
I'm Paco.
Welcome to the Right Show, as we mentioned. You want to dive into this?
Yeah, I mean, what's the most exciting thing that happened this last week? Can you tell us?
Well, we should probably recap a little bit on J.D. Vance and the Waltz debate.
Yeah.
I know we're a little bit behind now at this point. It's been a little bit.
Worth talking about.
But I do think that was a really, really enlightening debate.
Yeah, moment.
It's pretty crazy.
Moment in history.
Yeah. Actually, before we even start, though, I kind of want to talk about one of the comments that I read that I thought was hilarious to me. And I don't exactly remember what was said, but it was something along the lines of there's so much masculine energy coming out of J.D. Vance that I stared into his blue eyes and got pregnant.
That's
actually pretty good. That was pretty good. That's actually pretty funny. I thought that was really funny. And that's why I had to tell you that earlier today. I'm like, did you read that comment? But I thought that was really funny, though.
No, that's hilarious. And yeah, he's obviously, he grew out a beard, military, like, of course.
But without the beard, he has a super baby face. He literally looks
without
like
the beard,
he's 30
looks
years
like
old or something.
Different man. Yeah, 100%.
Broski looks like a 30-year-old.
Very well.
Yeah. I mean,
I think
that's a good move. I think he needed to grow it out. It made him look a little bit more adult.
Yes,
mature. And honestly, he's just an overall good guy. Carries himself pretty well, it seems, which I thought was kind of a stark contrast to Waltz, because Waltz just looked like a puppy, like in not a great way, like a scared
old,
puppy.
Right? He's old and 60, right? Like, come
on,
like,
does he not kind of resemble that like droopy dog look?
Because of his age, his cheeks are sagging a little bit. It might not be the best look, but I mean, that's just what he looks like, right? What can we say? Hopefully I don't get, saggy cheeks by 60. Hopefully
I don't know. I just think it's also like his eyebrows. His eyebrows has that kind of puppy look.
Okay.
And I think that I think that's the reason why the media is trying to pass him off as the grandpa kind of figure.
Okay.
It's like he's the nice grandpa. But look at J.D. Vance, he's weird. Which I also think it's funny that the rise to fame for Tim Waltz is that he called J.D. Vance weird. But then when I was watching the debate, I'm like, you're the one calling him weird because you look really, really weird. And again, I don't like these kinds of criticisms because it doesn't really tell much, because weird is just like a...
Yeah, it can be subjective. It can be a variety of different things.
But I just think that maybe you should have some self-awareness before calling somebody weird, especially on that debate stage.
Try to look your best. You know what I mean?
Right. You should.
You can do a lot of things to do that.
Right. I think it's also interesting that a lot of what we predicted last week was covered, whether it was abortion topic, immigration, taxation, and all those other things.
Yeah, the past election, we knew that they were going to talk about, they were going to criticize Trump. Like, his name was going to pop up. Like, obviously, everybody loves talking about him, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And now we're here. So,
well, I mean, how much did you watch of this debate, by the way?
I did not watch the whole thing, but I watched highlights, and I watched like 20 minutes live of it. And I did watch the... Oh,
you were in the middle of work.
Yeah, I was in the middle of work.
That's right.
And I did watch that muting part that we'll eventually get to, and I did watch like them having a couple of back and forths, and also there was a couple of heartwarming moments, right? When, for example, Waltz talked about how I don't know if it was his kid or his girl, was there during a shooting at a school recently, or at some point, and then Vance was like, "Man, I didn't even know that." And it was
Right,
really like
right,
heartfelt, like it was just a
right.
really
It almost like a reach
real,
over handshake
yeah,
moment.
yeah, like a
Yeah,
like a handshake moment, which I think
yeah,
is super important for American politics. Like,
right.
yes, we're gonna disagree on like very well much on a lot of things, but still, like we're human beings. We live in the same country. Like we have to get along.
Yeah.
So we have to tolerate each other, anyways. But yeah,
Right. I thought it was interesting because JD Vance would say certain comments and then kind of look over at Tim Waltz. And the funniest thing is when Tim Waltz would agree with JD Vance.
right.
And I'm like, wait, I don't know if you realize, but your position is supposed to be the opposite of JD Vance, not
You think you saw some of that? Yeah.
yeah, which again, it almost felt I felt bad for Tim Walz because every time it would be during moments where JD Vance would say something about Kamala and Biden's administration and how he understands it must be a really hard place for Tim Walz to have to defend all those things. And I think that's really funny that Tim Walz would nod along, like, yeah, basically it is really hard for me to defend those positions on immigration or something else. And I thought that was just really hilarious to me.
Yeah,
Um,
a
I,
lot of funny moments, right?
yeah,
What should we talk about first? Do you want to talk about first maybe like what the moderator's responsibility should be, or
yeah. I thought, okay, to be fair, it was a lot better than the first presidential debate between Trump and Kamala, maybe first and last.
it's
But
probably gonna be the last one? Yeah.
yeah, but I'm saying it was a lot better already. But it was certainly still one sided. And you could see it from the immigration segment where they cut the mic. And it was when JD Vance was telling Tim Waltz there is an app on the phone in which you could
Seek asylum.
seek asylum and there's no necessity to pass any type of background check. As long as you made it to the country, you just essentially download this app and then you can enter the country easy. And JD Vance mentioned that, to which they threw it over to Tim Walz to respond. Tim Walz's response was this law had been in place since 1990. And the moment that JD Vance,
Crazy statement, by the
right,
way.
right, which is
Very
because
crazy
in the
statement.
1990s, there wasn't an iPhone or even Android phones, I don't think.
Still use
And yeah, we're
beepers,
probably still using like
beepers.
Nokia. Actually, no, 1990, that was when I was 5 years old. Now you guys know how old I am, right? Like I was 5 years old. I don't even know if we had cell phones. Like I'm not even talking about Nokia phones. I'm talking about like the first cell phone
Yeah,
that's like
yeah.
the size of like this
What
big or
about
something.
beepers? We didn't have
I
beepers.
don't think we had beepers that early. I mean, I
No.
could be wrong. Somebody can fact
Yeah,
check
I don't know,
this, you
but
know.
anyways,
But my point is, there's no way this law could have been in place to put an app on your phone because that just didn't exist. And that's exactly what JD Vance, I think, was trying to explain. Like, hey, like this law hasn't been around since the 1990s.
and then
And the
boom,
moment he's like in the middle of this, and then they cut the mic.
like just I was
That makes
honestly
me kind of angry.
embarrassed. No, I was, yeah, of course I was angry, but I felt bad for my country. Like why are we censoring people? Like let him it's a debate. There's going to be a heated moment, especially in a debate of this high
Right,
of a
right.
profile, right? With these candidates, let them talk a little bit. Like it's
Yeah,
okay if you have to skip a question in the end or
yeah, yeah,
two. Like let them sort it out. They're men. They're
yeah.
grown up. Like this is not their first rodeo. Like let them speak. And the fact that he was cut off was so sad. So sad.
Well,
Made me
especially
mad.
because remember that the moderator jumped into the conversation. They
Oh,
had
that
agreed no
too.
fact checking. Then she jumped into it by talking about Haitians and how there's a group of them that are actually legal residents and this and that. In which he then calls them out. He said, hey, first of all, we already agreed that the moderators are not going to be fact checking. But since you guys are fact checking, then give me a moment
To
to
explain
essentially
myself.
check you again,
Yeah, to explain himself.
which he was about to start. And then the lady instantly in full blown panic is like, oh no, 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 we don't have time, we got to talk about the economy, we got to move forward, we got to this and that, which I thought was really funny. It's awfully convenient that you're over here fact checking, which not even a true fact check, more like a siding with Tim Waltz and throwing out some sort of fake kind of fact checking out there, and then he checks you and then you instantly say conveniently, I don't have time, we have to move on, to which he kind of overrides you, which is
She
pretty
did. They
sigma
did.
move, pretty sigma move on his behalf to just
Yeah.
basically, nope, I'm going to explain it.
He speaks
He
up.
then speaks up, and then now they're like, oh well, now that we gave him a chance to speak up, we have to let Tim Walz have the closing statement. Tim Walz offers a terrible closing statement on this issue, saying that this law has been around since 1990. Like I said, there were no cell phones back then, and not, at least not this kind of cell phone where you have an app you can download. And then JD Vance is about to check that, and then they cut the mic, which I thought, Wow, how convenient.
It was crazy. Like Margaret, one of the moderators, she, it almost just seemed like she wanted to have the last word in the
Right.
debate at one
Right.
point before the muting, and
Hmm.
that was just so like wow, like that's kind of disgusting. Like, bro, don't involve yourself in
Right.
this debate. Like, you're a
Right.
moderator. Keep like this is what I think a moderator should do. Right? They should keep track of time. They should make sure that the debaters aren't like fighting, like actually like throwing
Yeah.
punches or touching each other. Right? I
Right.
think that's what they should do. They should probably have security there for that. And I do think that they should do their best to let both candidates fully digest and fully express their thoughts, right? We don't want them to be interrupted. We don't want you to have an opinion on any of these matters.
Right.
If you are such a good
Or just hold
moderator,
it to yourself.
yeah, and
That's
look,
the
I
point.
understand. I understand. Like,
Right.
it's gonna be really hard, right? Like,
Right.
if
Like,
I work
imagine if we're
for,
playing basketball and the referee is like, well, I do like the Warriors more than I like the, Cavaliers in that finals
which
matchup.
is pretty,
I'm pretty sure the Cavaliers would file a complaint about that same thing. If one of the referees were like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of a big fan of the Cavaliers, but don't worry, I'm going to moderate. Like, I'm going to be a good ref. Like,
just
no one's going to believe
it
that.
just seemed so disingenuous,
It's
and
just
I
straight up
get it.
involving
I get
yourself.
it. I get it.
Yeah.
We are on their field. This is not Fox. This is not some Daily Wire, whatever else, right? Whatever other.
Right.
Um,
Shout out Daily Wire. Maybe you'll sponsor.
we do have to play by their rules. I do think that maybe it could have been smart for Vance to have asked first, so to prevent. He didn't know he was going to be muted, right? But we know
Right.
that we do know this. We know that we are on their field, so we have to tread very carefully. Maybe he could have
Right.
asked, "Hey, can I respond to this? Because this is a complete lie, right?" Maybe he could have gone. Maybe he could have
But
taken
you know
that
what
route.
though? I think it
It
was
is a
good.
debate.
It was
It is a
good.
debate.
It was good though that he got muted because it actually made it clear to everybody, hey, there's a side of the fence that these moderators are on. Because for years and years we've been lied to that, the MSNBC, the CBS, the ABCs, the
CNN,
CNN, and that all these news
legacy
stations are
media.
supposedly very unbiased and they just report the news as it happens. And it's very clear at this point that none of that has ever been true. And more so even now, it's even worse. And these moderators are essentially putting their thumb on a scale. And even then, JD Vance demolished everybody, it seemed. So I actually think that was one of the greatest debates I've ever seen in terms of performance from one candidate.
Yeah, I was very impressed by
Right.
Vance, his ability to speak well,
Right,
for his
right.
ideas to be clear.
Yeah.
That's something that unfortunately not your average citizen
Seems like
can do.
a lost art at this
Yeah,
point.
like not a lot of people are willing to at
Yeah.
least stand on the stage like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But he was able to handle it very
And
well.
I think that the last time we saw anything remotely close to this was something maybe more like an Obama.
Obama and
But
I forget
I'll give
his running
Obama
mate,
all the
but
credit due for being an
great
extremely
speaker.
good orator. Like, he is a great speaker.
He
He
has it
knows
down.
how to inspire you. He knows how to use tone and rise and fall of his speech to kind of lull you into certain moments of emotions. And he's just great at incorporating all those things. I'll give him all that credit. But JD Vance, that's got to be
He can
first
match him.
class.
He can match
That's
him.
got to be first class
He
right
can
there.
match
That's
him.
one of the greatest performances I've ever seen. Whether you're for it or not for it, you can look at that and it's a definitive, we know who won that debate.
Yeah, I think that Vance obviously took the W home.
Yeah.
And
I just
that
love the way
muting,
that he checked the fact checking. That was great because he was
Yeah.
like, nope, you're
also
wrong.
very respectful, right? Like,
Yeah.
he wasn't necessarily yelling at the moderator.
Yeah, he didn't
right?
raise his
He
voice or
was
anything.
like,
Yeah.
look, you're fact checking me. I'm gonna fact check you. We can play this back and forth
Right.
game. I'm willing to do whatever it is for people to hear me and hear what I have to say, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, I think that he was so calm, and I think that might have actually been what shook the moderators as well as Tim Walz, because Tim Walz started saying the craziest things like, oh, he was friends with school shooters, or he said that two times.
That slip up was
He
crazy.
said that 2 times. Well, I don't know how that's a slip up if you say it 2 times. I mean, you slipped twice.
Look, at that age, I mean, I'll probably say.
But
some
why
outrageous things.
would that? You got to be pretty shook to say something like that. That's a brainless comment.
Here's an even better question, right? What if Trump had said that? How would the country reacted to that, right? Like,
man, if that would be plastered for the next like however many days until election, it would have been on the news every single day on every commercial for sure. Actually, I'm not even sure. I don't know why the Republican Party does not have that on a cycle on Fox News on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Why do they not have that on football games and all of those? Why are they not buying up all the commercial spots to basically put that on repeat 24/7?
Because that is
That's
It's
a
pretty
terrible,
crazy.
terrible slip up.
Very
Like I
crazy.
don't see. It's one thing I would even say you would want to tread carefully, even making a comment like I have spoken with the family members of school shooters
Yeah, you
to
should.
really understand what happened here. I would rather him have said that, but he didn't say that. And even that statement in itself, I'm not fully sure it's warranted or necessary. But out of nowhere, saying something like I've spoken or
Friends
I
with.
have befriended school shooters or I don't know. That's crazy. That's got to be the
Yeah, you
craziest
have
take.
to be so much more smart about what kind of words you want to use.
Well, I guess apparently not
Whenever
though, because in the
you,
Democrat Party they'll just cover for you anyways.
yeah, I mean they did cover for
Yeah,
him, but yeah, you should be really careful if you're saying the word shoot or school or
because I mean, I bet you that would have been
gun.
edited out if it wasn't a live segment. It would
Yeah,
have absolutely, which and while we're at it, Tim Walz was given a, I would say, still a fairly softball question about his stolen valor comments about taking the weapons to war, that he never went to a war, and then talking about how he
that
was,
was all crazy.
in I think Beijing or whatever during the time of the
And then just to
Tiananmen.
recap, right? Basically, Vance accused Waltz of stolen valor for the fact that he wasn't actually there during the war that he
Right.
claimed he was there
But then
for.
he said that he carried those weapons to war and things like that.
Right, even though both of them were members of a different branch of the army, right, of our soldiers.
Right.
So
And he
yeah,
wasn't being disrespectful by calling him out for that, because it's like, it's just simply saying, hey, you didn't go to war. It's one thing if you did, but it's not saying, oh, you're in a lesser branch of the government, of the military. It's just saying like you didn't go to war, so don't claim that.
right. And yeah, just very interesting debate. Obviously, one of our better ones that we've had in recent years.
But what did you
Still on
think
their
though
feet.
about his comment when confronted with him lying? He just simply said something like,
He kind
oh,
of, yeah,
he said like I'm a knucklehead.
yeah, he did brush it off a
It's
little
almost
bit,
like,
which
oh, it's not a big deal. I'm a knucklehead. I say the wrong things all the time. I make mistakes, and I'm like,
yeah,
look, but you're the party that keeps claiming that Donald Trump is just a man that lies all the time, and then when confronted with that, you're just saying, oh yeah, but it's okay that I
it's okay that I
lie,
lie. It's okay that I
but it's not
lie.
okay for somebody else to lie.
Right,
And I don't like anyone lying in general,
right, right. It's
but
it's not
that
it's not against our. It's not with our motto. You know what I
right,
mean?
but I just don't like that. I really don't like that. I detest it, honestly. In fact, I just don't like people making excuses for it. I would much rather if he had just simply said, hey, look, I shouldn't have ever said that. I made a grave error, and moving forward, I'm not gonna be claiming those things anymore.
Yeah. You also told me this week that you watched the 60-minute interview with Kamala, right?
Yeah, and then I also had a little segment in there with Tim Walz as well, in which they confronted Tim Walz. Funny enough, since we're talking about the knucklehead thing, they confronted him about it, and what he literally said was
On
something
60
along
Minutes.
right on 60 Minutes, where he said something like, "Well, people know me, people know who I am, people know what I represent, and people know that I wouldn't blatantly, lie." And I'm like, well, except you did. So that's
To
still
it.
essentially still an excuse, right? That's not an apology.
Look, props to him for admitting his mistake, but still, like, think about what you were gonna use. That you were gonna use the claim of like going to war as leverage and to support yourself, to
Right.
make yourself
To
seem
to
more
essentially,
grand.
well, more to say, yeah, these weapons are not supposed to be accessible by the American citizens because these are war weapons.
All
And
right.
that's what he was trying to say. And these are war weapons I know because I went to war with these weapons. Well, you didn't.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, there we have it. A tell about the Democratic Party.
right.
But
And actually, in the 60-minute Kamala interview, what I noticed a lot is all these jump cuts, man. It's like they would ask a question and then you would jump right in. You could kind of tell something like where once you know the cues of reading a video, and when there's are jump cuts, you can see it. There are stutterings that are removed or things like that, and I could clearly see essentially what looked like Kamala Harris probably went into a word salad mode, and then they jump cut to the part where she actually had something to say. And even then, those little segments are not gems. They're not gold nuggets. They're
yeah,
they're honestly kind of a weird take
I'm
or
not
things
gonna
like
sit
that.
down for anybody's 60-minute interview, to be honest. But I saw the highlights
Right.
and didn't like a lot of what I saw. I mean, she talked also about how she wants the rich paying more taxes than like I think she said nurses or teachers, right? Like, what are your
Right.
thoughts on that? I think you have a little bit more of.
Well, I mean, from the finance sector, finance experience, I would simply put it this way. First of all, her statement that the rich should pay their fair share. Actually, the rich pay most of the taxes in America, period. There's no question. It's not even close, by the way. Okay. I think if I remember correctly, and we could fact check this or something, but it's something like the top 1% pay over 80% of the American tax, something like that. And so I reject outright that the rich are not paying taxes as much as, let's say, a nurse or something. And also another problem with the whole entire idea that if we raise the taxes on the rich people, which what is rich? Like she hasn't defined that. Is rich anybody who makes over 100,000? Is rich anybody who makes over a quarter million? Or anybody who makes 400, 500,000? What is rich? I don't even know what that
Right.
is. Okay, to be
Right.
honest with you. There are engineers that make $250,000 a year. Is that rich? Right?
Mm.
But then compared to what are we comparing to? I don't even know. I mean, technically, if you make $100,000 a year, you're probably in the top 1% of the world.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
you're
guess.
you're 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 in the 1%, the
Right.
1%, unless you're in California. I live in
Right, right.
California where
And you're
that,
just dead broke because
yeah,
you cannot afford a home. You have
yeah,
six-figure income, cannot afford a home, right?
which is crazy. But
Right.
anyways, we won't talk about that. The way she answered it, right? I think
Yeah, the way she answered it always is one of those things where there's no details, right? It's like, well, we're gonna just tax the rich, and then that's how I'm gonna pass all these different bills to help do this or help do that. First of all, it's not fair to tax anybody more percentage than somebody else. That just doesn't make sense to me. I think personally, I tend to be a little bit more libertarian about things. But I would say like we shouldn't tax for the most part, other than for infrastructure
nobody
things like that. But
nobody likes taxes,
military,
right?
but
Nobody, no, we don't like losing
right,
our money.
right. But we live in this country where it's not a
It's
libertarian
part of it.
country.
Part of it.
So I will say I accept the problems that come with it, and I will say, but we shouldn't be taxing anyone a higher percentage than anyone else. I think if you make a certain amount of income, it doesn't matter if you make more money. If you work harder, you shouldn't be disincentivized to not work hard. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Right. Now it's a little bit of a. Why don't you explain that more, right? Because what would encompass, right? Somebody working harder. I understand, right? That
Well,
is it. Does it mean the amount of?
I imagine
Does it mean more hours? Does it mean like
yeah,
more
more hours,
investments?
more mental hours too. Sometimes, like for example, if you're a business owner, I imagine that as a business owner, you're not done working the moment you leave the office. You're still thinking about your business. You're still trying to process all of it. You're still trying to decide, what is my next move and things like that. And also on top of the hours, it's not like if as a business owner, let's say other people work 8 hours to 10 hours a day, you as a business owner, you're probably working 12, 14-hour days. And then any other time that you're not working, you might just be trying to sleep or things like that. And then trying to catch up on the sleep that you already missed from like the
Yeah.
3 days ago or whatever, right?
Maybe an example that I can think of from my work is, yeah, my boss gets paid more than me, but he's also he talks about this all the time. Like he's always on the clock, right?
Yeah,
If an employee emails him to tell him, hey, like I'm sick, I can't come into work the next day,
right.
he has to respond.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't matter if he's
Even if it's like
on a nice dinner with his wife or
11
something.
o'clock at night.
Yeah, like he
Yeah,
has to be aware of
right,
who's gonna show up tomorrow to work, and
right.
if who can't.
Why are
So
we going to tax somebody because they work harder? Don't you think that actually makes it less likely for somebody to want to work hard? Right. But actually, here's the thing: is this is a talking point. The truth is, this is a talking point, and the problem with this is this: the idea that, for example, Warren Buffett would say something like, "Oh, I get taxed less than my accountant does," and I think that's so full of crap. And the reason it is because he says that first of all, as a person who donates money to the Democrat Party, so that helps get his Democrats voting base going,
mhm,
right? And then, of course, uh, once a Democrat is put into office, they're not gonna, go ahead and actually tax the people that put them in office, which is their constituents, right?
right,
So that's why the Congress will never pass these laws to tax the rich, truly tax the rich. But even if they were to tax the rich, it creates a couple of issues. One, extreme. Let's say they're talking about extremely wealthy people. That I'm talking about, like the Warren Buffett types. Okay,
mhm,
um, these people will always have tax loopholes, but even if you remove all those tax loopholes, they will just leave the country. They will take their business elsewhere. And that
right,
actually has happened in history when they tried that. And then when they did try that, eventually it didn't work. And so they repealed these laws. So, second thing is when they talk about how rich people don't pay their fair share of taxes, what are they usually talking about? They're usually talking about income taxes. So, for example, Steve Jobs, when he was the CEO for Apple in his second term as CEO, he did not take income other than $1 every year.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, that $1 is not going to get taxed. So, Steve Jobs could quite literally also claim, just like Warren Buffett, that, oh, yeah, I pay zero taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else pays more taxes than me, but I'm a multimillionaire. And
Yeah.
my asset worth and all of that is probably in the very high hundreds of millions, I'm guessing.
Right. And
Okay.
look, when you're the boss at a company, right? Like there's taxes almost for everything.
And the fees that you have to pay,
Right.
and
Taxes and fees. Yeah.
right. So essentially what we're saying is
All
they
aside
pay
from
their
the risk.
taxes. It's
All aside
just
from the
that maybe
risk.
they're not paying a specific type of income tax.
Yeah.
But for example, I, as a business owner, I know about that because I had to pay, the Medicare, the Social Security, and also I have to like figure out like workers
Yeah.
comp and all of those
Aside
things.
from the risk already
Right.
that you're taking
Right.
going into
Right.
this venture where
Right.
you know that you could very much well
Right.
fail, and most people do fail. Most
And
people who
actually,
start
I
something
didn't
do
take
fail.
income, if I remember correctly. I didn't take income, I think, for the first 8 months of me, running my business. But my baristas, my bartenders, and my servers, and all the people that work the night, the event night shifts and things like that, they all got paid more than me because I didn't take income. So
Yeah.
I could also be like, oh yeah, uh, you know, I never took income, and I never paid taxes, and all these servers could be like, oh, how come you don't pay taxes but we had to pay taxes? I'm
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, I didn't take income for 8 months, man.
Yeah,
Like,
you're
do you want to not
blaming.
take income?
Yeah, then there's a shift to blaming the system, right?
Right.
Like making it seem like the world is against you, like it's against
Right, it's a
me.
victim complex
Yeah, it's a
here.
victim mentality, and where is
Right.
that gonna get you, right? Like, where is that gonna get you? Why don't we instead shift the focus into being like, hey, like I just wanna, she keeps talking about stimulating small businesses. Like, okay, just talk about that, right? Don't say that richer people, which we don't know what it
Right.
means, are paying more taxes. We don't exactly know what
But
that
even
means.
then, I outright reject that we should tax anybody more because they have more income. I actually just think
Right.
that's
And that's one
that's
of your
already
hot takes, right? That's
yeah,
one of
that's
your
my
hot
hot
takes.
take. I don't know where. First of all, help me justify in any real world situation where you should be penalized for working harder. You should be penalized for going out there to try to make more money.
Mm.
Isn't that the American dream? Is to go out there, work hard, build a life for your family, and have the kind of income that you dream of, right?
Yeah.
And why are we trying to penalize somebody more because they're trying to dream bigger? And I just outright reject that. I don't think it's fair. And also, rich. The definition of rich keeps changing from generation to generation.
Yeah.
There was a
We
time,
have more millionaires now than
right,
we have ever had
right, right.
before.
But even being a millionaire, it doesn't make you rich, really,
No. I
at
mean,
this
you
point.
can run out of money pretty
Right,
quick. We know that. I
right.
mean,
And I mean, in California, our homes start at what, probably $1 million or something like that. Like, how,
yeah.
what does you having a six-figure job really do for you at this point compared to maybe somewhere else where you have $50,000 a year, but you could actually afford a home, right? And I know that we're running out of time a little bit, but
Yeah, I do just
I
want to quickly go over Milton. I don't know if you heard the news, but
yeah,
right
yeah.
after Helen, we have another natural disaster, which is
Oh,
going to be Mel
Helene,
Helene. Sorry, yeah.
yeah,
And look, I think that I want to praise DeSantis a lot because I don't know if you remember us talking about how we thought that he was going to be the next president because he's such
right,
a great leader. He gives off
right,
everything that he has all the traits and characteristics of somebody that you want to follow and that you would be happy knowing is in charge of
right.
things, right?
I mean, he's I
He's
think
giving
missing a little bit of the Riz factor, but everything else is great.
yeah, yeah, he might be a little bit hard to look at, but
You
yeah,
know what I'm
he's there.
saying? Like, I'm not even saying he's hard to look at, but I'm saying like he doesn't make you go like, oh yeah,
He's
riled
not
up to
JD
go vote.
Vance.
Yeah, yeah.
He's not JD.
He doesn't impregnate women by looking deep into their eyes. You know what I'm
Even
saying?
though I think he has colored eyes. But anyways, Milton coming in
Actually,
hot.
he was a high level baseball player though too,
Mm,
athlete. But anyways, continuing. Sorry.
Milton coming
Serious
in
note.
hot to Florida. Um, yeah, just my experience with natural disasters, like I mentioned in my previous episode. Like I've been there where you have heavy or like really strong storms where the raindrops just seem to be like really really large for like absolutely no reason. I know here in California we're used to these rain showers, which to me personally they really aren't rain. Like that's not the definition of rain that I have, but whatever.
Little
Yeah,
sprinkles.
yeah, they're just little sprinkles to me. Like I don't know if you've ever seen like thick raindrops, but there is such a thing as
Yeah, well, I mean,
thick raindrops.
typhoons in Taiwan
Right.
are very, very common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to list a couple of things that he's done that I think are like a sign of like a good leadership, right? So he's giving constant updates, right? He's showing his face. He's not hiding behind, a spokesman, or he's not avoiding interviews. He's interviewing everybody that he can interview. He's giving details about what his priority is, right? And
Right.
at this current moment, right, we're speaking Tuesday, October 8th. It's just removing all the debris from the past natural disaster from
Helene.
Helene. So if you don't remove debris and don't clear out roads, the debris is going to become a projectile for the next hurricane that comes by, and it's
Right.
going to increase the damage that it causes, right? So it could affect electrical equipment, homes,
Right.
businesses.
I mean, if you have like broken glass, I imagine just like bullets flying around in the next hurricane.
Like you really want to
Yeah.
manage all your debris as soon as possible, right? That's something that I'm
Right.
starting to learn, like informing myself
Yeah,
about.
I never thought about that, but that's actually pretty cool.
About
Like
the
that he's already thinking ahead in that way.
Yeah, and he claims that he has every single person, working for the government, and all the trucks like working
Yeah.
for the benefit of the people, right? And right now that focuses on removing debris,
Can I
providing
real quick
shelters.
interject
Yeah, what's up?
also that during the Helene situation and the aftermath of it, and what he mentioned was he mentioned that it was okay for Biden not to send more aid to Florida and to send aid to other states that needed it more,
Mhm.
because he said he had Florida handled. I thought that's a really I mean, what governor wouldn't want extra money coming in to help their citizens, right? But for him to do that, I felt like that's the very sign of a strong man and strong leader, that he can be like, hey, I'm okay now. We've got our
I'm
state taken
suffering.
care
I'm
of,
suffering,
right?
like
Right. But help the other states first. And I feel like the other governors should really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Especially if they're swing states. It's like, hey, you're from a red state. At this point, Florida's a red state. You're from a red state, but you're saying send the help our way. I feel like that's a baller move, man.
Yeah, it's not a lot of people get to say stuff like
Yeah.
that, and the fact that
That's
in a
strength.
moment of crisis,
That's strength.
he's
Right.
reacting like that. It's
Yeah.
a really good sign of.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good tell what
Mhm.
kind of man he is, right?
Yeah.
And I would definitely love to see him, run for the next race. Hopefully, we'll see
Yeah.
what happens. Again, he dropped out of this race in January of this year, but
Right.
aside from that, yeah, he's relocating hospitals. He didn't exactly say where he's putting all these people, but he says that they're moving him to a safer
Right.
place, right?
Right.
One thing that I want to shout him out for is the fact that there's still fuel in the state. People can go crazy very easily, right? As soon as they see like the color red or alert, like they start going nuts. They want to go shopping, they want to go prepare themselves for apocalypse, and so they start mobilizing themselves
Yeah.
and their family.
Yeah.
The fact that there's still fuel and people are still able to use roads and move wherever they want to feel like is right moving, I think that's a really good, a really good sign that he's doing a great job in managing this crisis.
Yeah.
Uber is helping for some reason. They're offering $25 vouchers to people in the state because obviously, your car can be destroyed by a tree.
And we're still talking about Florida only, or
Yeah,
Okay.
Florida, and it's yeah, he's basically making it, from my standpoint, right? From what I'm seeing directly from him, right? That's my source. I'm not listening to any of these other like news networks. He looks like he's calm. He's
Right.
always reassuring people. Like this is a moment of crisis. Like people can lose their homes, and people have already
Yeah.
lost many of their homes. But he's really hopeful, and I think that that's another good sign of a good leader. You don't
Yeah.
want to let people know that you're going insane, behind closed
Right.
doors.
Just
Like,
being calm.
yeah, you gotta stay calm. You have to
It's
look
kind of like the
very
JD Vance way, right? Just be chill,
Yeah, you have to just
calm under pressure.
take it in the face sometimes. The hits,
Yeah.
but look, he's doing
Or
his
Donald
job.
Trump, right after he almost got unalived, and he just gets up and he's like,
Yeah,
"Where's my shoe?"
that fist.
He literally was like, "Where's my shoe? Get me my shoes." I'm like, bro was caring more about his shoes than
his
potentially
life.
get unalived out there. And then he raises his hand and it's like, "I'm fine, guys, fight." I think that's calm under pressure. That's the kind of honestly, that's the kind of
Leadership that
Republican strength that I would have wanted. Like
That's leadership I want
right.
to see.
I know there's always this talk about toxic masculinity. I hate that term, but in this case, I just say that's just masculinity in its best form. It's
Right.
just calm under
Because
pressure, not
because look,
afraid of
we all
confrontation.
have bad
But
things and good things, right? And this is one of
right,
those good signs, and it
right,
should be praised, right? Like when somebody does
right.
something good, you should give credit.
Right,
Credit where
right,
credit's due.
right. And I don't see a lot of that same type of reaction coming from the other side, where they're just calm under pressure. Everything's just a panic, and everything also becomes like this argument point
Yeah.
of yeah, climate change, and that's the reason this and
Blaming
that.
and blaming,
Right, and it's
which
right. It's
that
using
move.
it as a campaign move, as opposed to, in this case, Ron DeSantis saying, "Hey, we don't need the funds right now. Move the funds along to the other state."
Yeah, and that's the thing that I wanted to mention. He's not becoming a victim.
Right.
There's a lot of criticism for FEMA and how they're handling the situation. He's not telling people FEMA's not
Yeah.
helping me, like I need help. Like no, he's taking care of it as best as he can
Yeah.
with whatever resources from the state that he has.
Yeah.
Right? He's not
He's making do
crying.
with what he has, and
Like
he probably is stretching the power of the dollar, to be honest.
as much as he can.
Yeah.
And I understand that there obviously are donations that were given to I can't say it, but
Helene.
Helene, and that are rolling over into Milton, right? There's a website, floridadisasterfund.org, which you can go and donate to if you want to. And
We could put that up on
yeah,
screen.
and I think he's just handling it very well. He's not blaming FEMA for not helping. He's not calling them out. He's just doing his job. He's just clearing the debris, like I said, offering people shelters, like letting them know too that they don't have to actually run away. They can just go into higher places if they can't afford to, or they don't
give
have
them
friends.
proper instructions.
Yeah, give him proper instructions.
Right.
Like him and his team break it down. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to travel 100 miles away. You can
Right.
still stay in the state
Yeah.
and go through Milton in this case, and not have to move so far away. Right? You just have to properly brace for the impact.
But okay, and I know we have to close in a second, but I do want to also say that I really don't appreciate looking back at all of this, where we had all these hundreds of millions of dollars that FEMA gave away to Ukrainian front efforts with Russia, against Russia.
A lot of money has been done into wars,
but we're talking about over $100 million. I want to venture and bet that $100 million could be pretty darn helpful right now.
Yes.
For our citizens. And I understand that it sucks that somebody has to suffer here, but remember that as an American government, your job first and foremost is to protect your people, not to protect some other people. And I know that's a hot take. I know that sounds mean. I know that's not the nice thing to say. I know that people might even thrash me for it because of, wait, aren't you a Christian? But nonetheless, the American government serves to protect the American people first.
Yeah, not to say we can't help other countries, which we have historically, for decades and centuries.
But FEMA is basically no longer, they've run out of money to help out here.
That's the impression that I'm getting from
that's what I heard.
Mayorkas, I think that's his name.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding what Mayorkas said, but my understanding, at least at this moment, it's that they don't have money anymore.
Yeah, it's unlikely that you're misunderstanding them. I do also think that they just can't help too much. And what a blessing it is to have the sentence.
Right.
But
it's not a surprise also, because I always generally think that the private sector is much better and efficient when it comes to these types of things. But when you ask, the government to fill a pothole, it takes like 6 months.
Yeah.
Right. So again, I generally am not big on having the government be the first and foremost, like.
Yeah, we shouldn't depend on the government, right? We shouldn't. We should depend on ourselves.
Yeah,
right?
That's why also the $750 they're saying they're going to give to hurricane victims and things like that, and it's $750 per household. So if you have like 8 kids in the house, well, that's a lot of kids. Let's say you have 5 kids in the house, it doesn't matter. You're getting $750.
It's still not going to go.
And also, it's so stupid because you have to apply for it online, and that's the only way to apply for it. And guess what? There's no electricity, so people can't get online. The cell phone towers are down and things like that, so they can't get online, right? And then on top of that, even if they had the $750, like what, they're going to go to the grocery store that no longer exists? Like, where are they going to spend that money?
Yeah.
If I gave you $750 in Monopoly money, you can't use it. And it's the same way here. You gave them $750 into their bank account, but they can't use that money because they can't do anything with it. Things are down.
It's a really hard situation.
Throwing money at stuff doesn't work. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, not
hot take.
Well, hold on. Like sometimes throwing money at stuff does work. Sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't. In this case,
I don't know. I think generally it doesn't work. Just throwing money without a plan generally doesn't work.
Okay, yeah.
Like if you gave $750 to a high school kid who's never managed money before, he's probably gonna buy a couple of Jordans.
That's it.
And then
no more backpack.
No more $750.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't. Whatever. That's my hot take.
Good job to JD Vance on that president vice presidential debate.
Yeah.
Didn't really like the 60-minute interview with Kamala, and then yeah, praises to DeSantis for handling the situation very well, not needing
Yeah.
not making it seem like he needs the government so much
Right.
as much as he needs his own people, right? The
Yeah.
people of Florida, man, and women. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and yeah, super excited for
All
more
right.
videos.
See y'all next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, just some